on DIY TV. And here on the first show...
Should Christianity be the only religion taught in our schools?
The question now is, can Newcastle United, under Ozzy Ardiles and new chairman George Bald, start on a new era?
Good evening. The Hare Krishna movement, with their colourful followers, have always been hard to ignore. But are the shaved heads, the beads and the robes just part of a harmless religious sect? Well, many parents decided they weren't after the movement recently visited Tyneside School. DIY TV invited the Krishnas to put their side of the story.
As an organisation, we have an education department, and we have a policy of contacting schools and offering our services in their religious education. Our basic motivation is that we want to broaden the mind of the children and give them some sort of insight into the spiritual culture of India, Hinduism and Krishna consciousness. I came to Newcastle with my wife about 5 years ago. Since then we've started a small temple here, and some local people have become involved. We have a congregation of 100 people maybe. Most of them are family people with jobs and family responsibilities. And we have a few monks who also live with us as well. And this chanting of Hare Krishna, whether we're chanting on the streets or chanting in the temple or chanting privately in a meditative way, is beneficial spiritually for everybody concerned. This chanting, it's the chanting of the names of God. These are Sanskrit names, but they're not Hindu names of God. It's the same God as Christianity. Our temple here in Newcastle is funded from profit that we make from selling books. We don't have a fixed price for the books we distribute, but generally people give some contribution. About 30% of our income goes to pay for the printing of the books that we distribute, and the balance just about stretches to cover the bills.
Excuse me?
Prejudice, sometimes it's just because people don't know what we're about. Also, and it can be documented that certain of our ex-members have done all sorts of things which aren't anything to do with our religion. And there are certain groups who document those things and say that's what Krishna consciousness is about. There's some criminal activities.
Excuse me, sir. 1 second, please.
Press sometimes give us a fair hearing. Sometimes they're more interested in running some sensational headline, as we've seen locally. Sometimes they're not interested in verifying their facts with us, the press. Sometimes they are. It depends on who is the editor. and whether they have any prejudice themselves. Srila Prabhupada, founder of the Hare Krishna movement, he wanted that within 10-mile radius of all our temples that no one should go hungry. That principle we're trying to practice here in Newcastle as well. And although we are only doing food distribution on a limited basis at the present time, we are hoping to increase so that we can fulfill his desire that that would happen. Our food distribution program is supported by local people. We get free vegetables quite often from local grocers. We're also getting some free butter from the EC surplus as well. Whatever the temple has to put into it financially, we do that to make up the balance. Our free food distribution is not meant as a bait to allure innocent people into the Hare Krishna cult, anything like that. The type of people who we'd encourage to get involved in a monastic way are very few and far between, as is a fact with all religions of the world. We're interested in encourage everybody to be involved in spiritual life. For some very few people, that may be become a monk or a nun. That may be a fact, but for the majority it won't be. So how do you decide who is suitable? I would want anybody who said they wanted to do it, I would want to be convinced that they were actually serious about it.
Now, Divya and various members of the Hare Krishna community in Newcastle have joined us here in the studio tonight. You're all very welcome. But I want to begin with this lady up here, is Linda Hunt, and you are the school teacher at Bolton Comprehensive. And you actually invited the Hare Krishnas in. Now, why did you do that?
I think basically for 3 reasons. I had been criticised previously about the fact that we were too Christian orientated. So really this course that I instigated for year 9 was in answer to that. Secondly, in line with the national curriculum that's coming out for religious education and the local education authority syllabus, it's very multicultural, and I wasn't doing anything in that respect at all. So this course I devised. And thirdly, I think as a society we're very much multicultural. I did think it was a very good idea to give some of my pupils an insight into as many different ideas and thoughts as possible.
But there are a lot of people who would have said, who have said, why didn't you choose a more mainstream religion?
I decided on Hinduism first, following on to Buddhism, and then going on to Islam. And as we have a term, 3 terms, I decided that still I'm skating the surface, but I decided to stick to those 3 main ones. Obviously there's scope elsewhere perhaps to bring in other denominations, but it isn't planned as yet. So the Hinduism was just, it was slightly older than Islam, and Buddhism seemed to naturally follow on from Hinduism.
Okay, so you wouldn't turn back the clock then, Linda?
Certainly not.
No. Okay, let me talk to some of the pupils who have gathered round you. What happened when the Hare Krishnas arrived?
Well, they just came and they did like a 10-minute presentation.
Yeah?
And they talked about their religion, and they did a chant, and they just showed us basically what sort of things they did, just safely.
Did you find it educational?
Yeah, I found it good. I found that it helped us with our RE course that we're doing on Hinduism.
Okay.
It helps us understand.
Were you impressed by them?
Yes, it was very interesting.
Yeah. What about your parents? What did they think?
A bit shocked at first, but then I told them a bit more about it, and they understood why Mrs. Hunt had got them in to talk to us.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of, what was your impression of the Hare Krishna movement before and after coming to visit you in the school? Was there a difference in your outlook towards them?
Yes, well, first of all, before they came in, I really didn't know anything about them. And then they talked and they told us a bit more about the movement. And, like, we learnt from that. Just from the small presentation, we learnt a lot about them.
Right, okay. I want now to talk to Colin Hart, who's from an organisation, Christian and Tyneside Schools. Colin, now, having listened to the teacher involved and the pupils, what's the problem?
Well, the problem is my organisation is in favour of children learning about other faiths, provided it's done in a way which respects their integrity and coherence. Well, there's a big difference between learning about a religion and actually taking part in a religious festival of another faith. And then there's also the problem I have that our group has read a lot of press reports linking the Hare Krishna movement to very serious crimes, child abduction, drug trafficking and so on. And I'm very worried. We've also heard that the Hare Krishna organisation itself has been fined $5 million for causing emotional damage to a 14-year-old girl. And we're very worried about that, so we're worried that they should not be invited into school.
Whether true or not, you're very worried about Divya. You can perhaps maybe understand that the movement has a bit of an image problem, hasn't it?
Sure.
What is that born out of?
Not doing enough school programs like this, I think. We want to let people know what we're about, and I think ignorance about Hare Krishna is basically the problem. People meet us on the street or see us on the street, we look slightly unusual, at least in terms of what people see in this country, and they may draw all sorts of confusion. Some people think our chanting is some sort of protest. Some people are surprised to know that we believe in God, and it's the same God as the Christians believe in. They're very surprised to know that. So we want to educate.
must come in at this point, because that's just not the truth or the case. It is not I must really question that statement quite strongly. The God of the Krishna consciousness movement is not the same God as that of the Christian faith at all.
Could I come in on that point, actually? I would disagree that there are many gods, as you were suggesting there.
I wasn't suggesting there were many gods at all.
Well, you were saying we believe in a different one. We believe there's only one Supreme Lord, and that no matter what you call that Supreme Lord, providing one is worshipping that person, then we're all on the same path. So we do actually, as part of the Hindu tradition, have a theological advantage, if you like, in that we believe in other major religions such as Islam and our Lord Jesus Christ. We do actually believe in
Why
that.
is the schools program so important to you? Is it a recruiting program?
It's not a recruiting program. We want to, of course, inform children about what we believe. We are a missionary movement. We're very interested in spreading or disseminating spiritual values, because we believe that academic training without spiritual values is dangerous, as I think we see in the world today with our ecological and environmental problems. One thing I'd mention is that our spiritual values are not the monopoly of a particular group. So we really want to spread those values, inform the children about our tradition, our particular tradition and its beliefs, and also counteract some of the allegations and the misconceptions born of ignorance and misinformation.
Okay,
The problem is,
Jacob, you're a parent as well.
Yes,
What's your view on this?
absolutely appalled that this group was invited into the school. They took part in chanting, they got the children chanting, they offered them sweets, and the parents were not allowed to exercise their legal right to withdraw their children from that lesson because they were not informed about it beforehand.
Would you have been as abhorred if some other religious group had been invited into the school?
I would have liked to have made the judgment. It's very important to me that my children, as Christian children, in order to fully welcome religious minorities into our country and not to be prejudiced against them, that they know what they believe and they learn about them, but in a way that is integral to the religions.
Okay, I'd like to talk to Ray Clark here, because you were able to invite the Krishnas to your school, were you not, without much of a fuss, and yet are you surprised at all the headlines this visit has drawn?
I think that the situation was rather different with my school, in that we run a personal social education programme where the sixth form groups have to invite a speaker in to speak to the rest of the sixth form, and so in fact it was initiated by the sixth form themselves. Now, although my name was probably at the bottom of the letter somewhere saying this is a bona fide thing, it was the pupils themselves who invited them in.
Ian Harth, part of the problem is a lot of parents view the Krishnas with a lot of fear because they don't see them as a religion, they see them as a sect or a cult.
Exactly.
Now you're an expert on cults, would you classify them as such?
They are regarded as such the world over by people in our field. What we're dealing with here, and I think to a large extent we've missed the point so far, is an issue of psychological coercion. Now, Science Digest, January 1982, in an article called Information Disease, indicated, after researching this phenomenon, that it takes the average former Krishna member 11.1 months to fully rehabilitate. But there are long-lasting difficulties that can be associated with involvement beyond rehabilitation, as they put it, which can last for 6 years. I've been in this field now for 12.5 years, and I've dealt with distressed families who've called me from all over the world who've lost loved ones to the group. We're talking about something rather sinister going on here. I've dealt with one family who had a 15-year-old boy who they had full legal rights to disappear off the face of the earth for 6 years. He was being held.
So suffice it to say,
this way, he'd been taken to India by the group in question.
You would have concern if they were in a school frequented by your children?
I would have a great deal of concern, and the people of this area don't know what they're dealing with.
Right. This lady's daughter is a member of the Hare Krishna movement. Do you think she's a member of some sect? Has she been influenced, hypnotized in some way?
No, she is very, very happy, and I am very happy for her. I'm one of the lucky people who have actually also, through her knowledge, learnt quite a lot about it myself, and I have become much more open-minded. And I think so many parents are frightened because they don't know, and then they do know a bit about it, and they know that they discover the Hare Krishna principles of no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. So all things they practice themselves, and they feel guilty. But as I say, my daughter just is so happy.
Okay, Dr. Eammon, I would just like to put it, it's been said there that they are a branch of Hinduism. Are they regarded within mainstream Hinduism as being part of the religion?
Well, the little that I can know I must put to you. I believe in 1568, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the Vaishnavism movement. Now that's good 500 years ago. And personally, I believe any cult that lasts 500 years is not a cult. Otherwise, Sikhism is a cult. I mean, in the year 10 AD, 20 AD, Christianity was a cult. Jesus Christ was nailed to the cross. Have you forgotten?
On the basis that you just...
Have you forgotten? And a cult is something you do long enough, it becomes good enough. And I also work in the field of psychology.
This
I deal with drug addicts.
in 1965.
Well, yes, it started at the same time as the hippie movement. Yeah. But don't please confuse one with the other. I think they are mainstream Hindus. I think I have a lot of respect for these people. And I think if you scan the camera now on all of us, the only happy, relaxed, confident people are those people. Look at our anxious faces. Look at everyone's furrowed eyebrows. Just look at yourself. Just see how anxious you are.
We're going to leave it. With those words, we'll just leave it. We're going to take a short break. We're going to spread out the discussion in part 2 and talk about the role of religion in a multicultural society. See you in a couple of minutes. So welcome back. When you were last with us, we were dealing with the reaction to a visit to Bolton Comprehensive of a group of Hare Krishnas. But how do we broaden religious awareness in our schools? And indeed, should we? Now, Christine Thompson, you are an educational advisor. What does the 1988 Education Act lay down in respect of things like this?
Really, that we have to remember that religious tradition in this country is in the main Christian, while taking account of the other principal religions in Great Britain today.
So we should be teaching Christianity first and foremost?
The other. Now, whether that is all the other or whether it's a choice between the others is not legislated for.
Okay, who agrees or disagrees with that? Lady with the pink jacket there, third row up.
Thank you. My name's Janet Hughes and I represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the North East.
Otherwise known as Mormons.
Commonly known as the Mormons,
right.
That's correct. That's correct. And I would agree that we need to be more tolerant in our society. We need to be informed of different religions, and I think it's fine for so-called specialists to come into schools and share information. But the thing that I think should be the real issue is once they're in school, what they do. You know, it isn't right for children to be exposed to missionary work, and it isn't right for them to be involved in acts of worship. Information is okay.
Let me just get this straight, Janet. So you're saying, forgive me, do Mormon children have their own schools? No, is religious...
I am also a teacher, actually.
Right, but religious education would be a matter for the family and the church outside of school.
Very much so. And within the church we have an evening set aside every day of the week, every weekday on a Monday, where children are with their families, and you know, we take responsibility for the things that we
So you're
teach our
saying
children.
take religion out of school, leave religion
No,
for the
I
churches?
think information is fine. Information is fine. But missionary work and acts of worship, no way.
Okay, let me hear this, Matt. From a Muslim point of view.
Yeah, I think religious education is just same as any other subject. But what we find within this subject, like, for example, biology, chemistry, every bit of evidence is dealt with. In this subject, people are taught, Muslims believe this, Hindus believe this, Sikhs believe this, but what they are not taught is the evidence, why they believe it. Once they are taught that why they believe it, then it is the right of the child to choose whatever he wants to choose.
So you're talking about pure scientific fact?
Yes, of course.
But where would any religion stand on pure scientific fact? Surely it's a matter of faith.
Yes, of course, it is faith. Under the Islamic law, there is such thing as let there be no compulsion in religion, for truth stands clear from error. For those children, they will naturally come to that what is truthful. So obviously, if you scrutinize every bit of evidence scientifically, then obviously the child will come to what is truthful.
Right. Janet?
I'd just like to say that I think that's right. You know, we should teach our children information in school, and if we want to teach them about Buddhists, I think it's okay to bring in the expert, bring in a Buddhist and tell us what they think. But it is not the place for missionary work, and it is not the place for acts of worship.
Mr. Qureshi, now you were a school teacher for what, for over 10 years or so.
Yes.
Did you teach in a multicultural school, a broad-based mixed school?
Yes, I did. It was called then the Slatyford School. I taught from 75 to 86. Now it's called Reedwood after all these mergers.
What's your own background? What's your religion?
I am a Muslim. I'm a spokesman for the Muslim community in the Northeast. I am the chair of the Information Subcommittee of Tyne and Ware Racial Equality Council. I am a parent. My son studies in Rutherford School. And as a practicing Muslim, I personally subscribe to the view that we should not try to limit or narrow down the students to one particular thing, to say that the act of worship should be Christian mainly or broadly, but it should be, I agree that there should be other religions available, and the students should not be looked upon as very minor, insignificant.
Looking at your other cap as head of the racial equality, as racial equality chairman, how closely connected is religion and racism?
I am definitely of the opinion that whenever things happen in which one religion is shown in bad light or victimized, or say when Christianity is protected and the other religions are not, there is a double standard in law. Yeah. And when one...
Okay, let's hear it, Colin.
So racism is the offshoot of religious discrimination.
We see only 3% of the country adhere to a non-Christian faith, whereas 80 to 90% give allegiance to Christian faith. Now, it's very important. Well, I'm sorry, but these figures come from opinion polls.
Do you
well,
vote
yes,
for quality?
12 to 14%.
5,900 patients, and out of them maybe 100 go to church. I think the problem is there's a spiritual vacuum in this country, and all of you are dead scared of the others moving in. There was a vacuum in the national health for doctors. The Indian doctors moved in. There's a spiritual vacuum, and that's why I deal with junkies. I work on Wednesday morning with junkies. They're all very spiritual people with the vacuum.
I agree.
And I think the problem isn't us.
Okay, let's find out more about this spiritual vacuum. Is there, and who's filling it?
There is a spiritual vacuum, and it needs to be filled by the Lord Jesus Christ. Here we're talking...
And nobody else?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody has an opinion. They're like noses. In actual fact, what I earnestly believe is the Lord Jesus Christ changes people. We're not talking about doctrine or rote.
What?
Jesus changes things.
So you have...
You do not get the freedom in Hindu or Islamic countries that you get in Christianity. Try preaching Christianity. Try preaching Christianity in Iran, sir.
Excuse me, could I just put it to you? How aware should children in school...
Be quiet.
How aware should children in school be made of other religions?
I think what has been mentioned here is correct. They need to have a balanced opinion. But the sole religion, the sole teaching, should be handled by Christians. It should not be handled by teachers.
Let me hear from this lady. You had an opinion there.
I just said that I think the young people of today should be made very aware of all the other
Excuse
religions.
me. How important in a multicultural society in which we live, how important is it that we should have an awareness of other religions,
Well,
do you
I
think?
think one of the fundamental problems in our society is that precisely because people proclaim Christianity in the kind of closed way in which the gentleman behind me has said, it actually turns off the majority of people. I mean, the number of middle-aged people who never darken the doors of a church today because religion was presented to them badly when they went to school, they're turned off by it.
As a Christian, how open-minded are you?
Well, I think
how far would you go?
I think the thing that I would want for my children is that they're aware of two things. One is that there is a religious dimension to life, and the other is that there is a whole variety of ways of finding God. And that, it seems to me, is the function of religious education.
Would you then speak, you're what, a Church of England minister, are you?
Well, I happen to be.
Yes, right. Are you then saying that if children find God through the Hare Krishna movement, then that's perfectly acceptable?
Well, I mean, let me pose two alternatives. There's an organization called the Christian Association of Business Executives, one of whose members recently wrote an article saying that he, as a man earning £250,000 a year, was underpaid, whereas a Hare Krishna group actually feed people in Eldon Square on a Thursday night, whatever the weather. Now, if my children were to make a choice as to which way they would go, I would be happy that they went that way.
Is the good Reverend putting forward a very Christian outlook on all of this? Is he? No. Who says no? Let me. Yes, this gentleman up here with the glasses and blazer. His outlook is not Christian then. Why not? Why not?
Not at all, because we need to understand that a lot of what's been said is totally contradictory to what the Bible says. And Christians follow what the Bible talks about. And Jesus talks about that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And if you take Jesus Christ out of the centre of it all, then we're taking Christianity out of the centre of it all altogether.
Is this really the sort of debate you wanted to encourage when you visited Bolden School?
Not really, but it strikes me that we're talking about indoctrination here, not of Krishna consciousness, but of Christianity in schools. I agree with Colin that we shouldn't indoctrinate the children.
You should have invited them back to your temple.
Did you do that?
We gave out some invitation cards that the teacher said was okay. Later I regretted that actually, and I apologise for that.
Why did you regret that?
It wasn't something that I'd asked the devotees to do. It was a mistake, and it's not really our policy at all to do that. So I apologise.
I'd like to say that we have a policy, a national policy, that although we inform children about what we do, what we believe, etc., our history, we do not engage them in worship.
Okay, I think it's most important to talk to the children involved, and they actually are very keen to speak.
I'd like to say that we weren't obliged to chant, we weren't obliged to take the literature, and we weren't obliged to go to the temple either.
It was all optional, we could have took it if we wanted
And
to.
people are saying that the children were offended. Well, personally, I was more offended by the army coming in and making sexist comments about the girls. Yeah, the army.
What did they say about girls?
Well, they like the girls to look pretty and putting the lipstick on in the middle of a battlefield, and we just got it. Just
Trust
really
the
annoyed
army,
them.
eh?
And well, it's like I think the reason why most parents don't want the children to be exposed to this because they don't understand it and they're frightened of it.
Yeah. I'm really glad the Hare Krishna movement came in because it's not, you can't really learn reading from a book. It's best to see them in action and learning about them from themselves.
Professor Neil Jenkins, I mean, you would come, sorry, there you are there, sir. You would come from a different direction altogether. Now, you are what's known as a humanist.
Yes.
Now, tell me what a humanist is.
Well, humanists reject the religious point of view altogether. They don't believe in God, they don't believe in an afterlife, but they do believe in putting human well-being at the centre of their ethics. And they manage to have very happy and satisfactory lives without any worship, without any prayer, or any of the outward activities of religion.
Are you now the new growth thing, are you?
Well, we would like to think so. We would certainly approve of the idea of having different religions in school. We would hope, in fact, we might be invited to the Oldham Comprehensive School to give a humanist talk. We certainly have the wide idea.
Is that likely? Is that likely? You're now going to create another row by inviting the humanists?
It certainly is a possibility. It wasn't planned, but certainly you're very welcome.
But would you not? Should you not be consulting the parents before you issue open invites like that?
I must admit, as part of a religious education course, part of lots of other, people are invited into school for various reasons without parents say so, and I must admit, I didn't feel it was necessary.
Parents, no, I
Okay, let me speak to this gentleman in the cardigan here in the back row.
I don't think it's something to avoid that Jesus Christ was very controversial. He wasn't saying, look, there's millions of ways to God. If that was the case, it doesn't matter what you do, folks. And I'm afraid the man who's looking after his 70 years and 10, he doesn't have a vision for what's beyond that. And I think when Jesus Christ came, he was saying, listen, folks, I have a role to separate
the Hare Krishna movement have a vision for what's beyond that?
Well, they cannot include Jesus Christ.
But should it be exclusively, in fairness now? I mean, how exclusive can you belong to this this club of Jesus Christ?
Well, I think there's education, which is the objective teaching of the presentation of fact. That's what people believe. But when you come to matters of spirituality, the Lord Jesus Christ would say that there is a definitive difference between accepting him as the way to fill your spiritual vacuum and trying to fill your spiritual vacuum with the variety of other ways which Christ says are not going to satisfy.
And how well briefed are you and people who are with you here tonight in the other ways? To dismiss them, should you not understand them first?
I just want to make one point, and it's not a patronising one. I'm not trying to dismiss any other faith. I believe the Lord Jesus Christ came, and he said that there is no other way. So reverentially, I'd say that he's dismissing them.
Right. I would just like to leave the final word again with the children here from Belden Comprehensive. How surprised are you at what you've heard here tonight? Because you will choose in the next few years what way you will practice your religion as adults. Have you formed any opinions here tonight?
Well, when it was in the newspapers and everything, they said that had a lot of phone calls and letters about when they came in. And only they had about 2 phone calls from parents complaining.
The Director of Education was swamped with complaints. And I have 50 parents who are against what happened.
50 parents, 50 parents, okay.
I think we should be more aware of the other religions around us. I don't think we should just focus on Christianity. I think
Christianity is presented by Christians in the schools, that's the trouble.
I mean,
the teachers are not Christians.
As a Christian at the moment, do you have any intention of not being a Christian in the future?
Well, it's like I say, it's your own decision you've got to make. And I'm not sure what I want to do.
But tonight's helped you to maybe mould that opinion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. You're very kind. That's it, I have to say, for part 2. We'll leave it there in a few minutes. We'll be catching up on the people whose stories we featured in the first series of DIY TV. That's in part 3 after this break. Join us then. And you're very welcome back. Now, in the first series of DIY TV, viewers reported on, would you believe, 30 stories, and that was back in the summer. Since then, there have been more than a few developments with the issues that you raised.
I'm standing on the site of the municipal incinerator, which was closed 2 years ago, and in front of me I have the proposed site of the clinical waste incinerator from Northumbria Water Authority. We managed to cut out one form of pollution and creating another. There are considerable number of groups that have formed themselves in this area in opposition to this proposal. Northumbria Water have a unique opportunity at the moment, and they can help to clean up all the clinical waste problems in the northeast. The only thing is they've chosen the wrong site. The reasons for my opposition to this clinical waste incinerator is because I'm one of the many parents who have lost a child with leukemia in this area.
people who are homosexual, lesbians and gay men should have equal rights in society. The fact that we choose to make partners of people of the same sex does not affect our ability to do jobs or to hold down tenancies or to be responsible adults.
What's happened is that the number of people in the adult population who smoke is fortunately rapidly declining. But the law hasn't kept up with that. So it is now not possible for people to insist on working in a smoke-free environment. Their place of work is not covered by law. And what I'm seeking is a ban on smoking in public places. That is not only the place at work, but also places of entertainment, eating places and public transport.
Go back in studio. I've seen some smashing stuff here. Probably the region's leading small theatre. And why is it being allowed to be closed for a paltry sum, while all those possible saviours seem to be gripped with a fierce inertia?
In December 1987, the city authorities issued a mandatory order on its Hackney fleet, which basically said that in the next 6 years you must convert your saloon cars on Hackney for a black cab. We've just returned from Strasbourg just today actually, and the European Parliament quite clearly states under Article 30 of the Treaty of Rome that this practice of having mandatory orders and anything such as this which you can equate to another industry is quite clearly in contravention of the whole spirit of the treaty.
I'm the chairperson of Cowgate Kestrel Women's Football Club. The club has been together for about 18 months now. We've just completed our first and very successful season in the Northern Region League. We've just won the second division on our first time of asking. We've been hoping to try and get ourselves attached to Newcastle United Football Club. That wouldn't be the first time that would have happened. Many clubs up and down the country have got a women's side attached to them. What we'd be hoping to get with Newcastle United is really open for discussion, but we think we're looking for the recognition of Newcastle United to say we recognise that Cowgate Kestrels are a good, well-run, well-organised and very skillful playing side.
Now, the Cowgate Kestrels weren't the only football club featured in the first series, because Newcastle United themselves and their boardroom wrangling come under scrutiny. What is the political situation? Have all the boardroom wranglings finished? Are they at an end? Has peace broken out at last?
Do boardroom wrangles ever end? I'd be surprised if they do. But we've got what I would consider to be a position of relative stability. Relative stability, yes. I'm quite happy with the situation at the moment.
George is happy there, Bran. Has the ghost of John Hall been exorcised?
Not completely. I mean, that would still be the major worry that I have to Newcastle's progress taking them into the Super League. I still don't know. I followed this case very, very closely. I still don't know whether John Hall is wielding influence at St James's Park. He is the largest shareholder, and I would suggest it's impossible really to have a company such as Newcastle United with the largest shareholder outside the boardroom.
And how prophetic those words of Brian McNally proved to be, because John Hall, of course, is now chairman, though George Forbes keeps his seat on the board. Now, here to discuss those sort of developments, Steve Wraith, who's heavily associated, of course, with the Newcastle Supporters Club. From the terraces, how's the latest development viewed?
Well, all the fans, I mean, all football fans have got different views. You know, it doesn't matter what football club you support. But I think at Newcastle, they're all pretty much in unison. There's no other way out of the financial trouble that Newcastle are in at the moment. John Hall is the only person who can actually put money into the club. He's got a lot of influential friends, and he's the only person who could probably get like rid of the debt that Newcastle have like built up over the last couple of like years. And you cannot really fault the bloke. I'm a bit wary of him. But as I say, there's no one else to turn to at the moment.
The boardroom wranglings, are they having their effect on the pitch? Because it's not been, to say the least, a great season.
I think the boardroom wranglings, whatever club it is, whether it's Tottenham Hotspur or whether it's Newcastle, I think it always has an effect on the players because, I mean, it's like any workplace, you know. Once there's arguments at boardroom level, then it goes down to the manager, then goes down to the people on the workroom itself, you know, and it's the same at a football club. I think Newcastle have got their fair share of problems at the moment, and I think it is affecting the play on the pitch. Ozzy Ardiles took on one of the hardest jobs in football, and I mean, it shows now. Injuries, they're in every part of football, and Newcastle have had a bad run of injuries. They've got no money to buy new players, and that's why they're in the mess they're in.
Does Ozzy still command the vast support on the terraces?
Yeah, Ozzy Ardiles hasn't done a thing wrong since he came to Newcastle. That's my view, and most of my friends' views who will go to Newcastle matches home and away. And Ozzy's still got the faith of the fans, but as I say, it's not his fault. It lies in the chairman, you know, with the chairman and with the board of directors. He can't do anything if he's got no money.
But the prospect of third division football, I mean, it must have crossed your mind.
Well, it has. It's got to cross your mind when you're sitting in the bottom three of the second division. You cannot help but think about third division football. But I would say a lot of the fans are optimistic. The way we're playing attractive football, and you know, I can't see Newcastle United going down this season. Honestly, can't.
You fancy a few points against Charlton tomorrow?
Oh, I think so.
Okay, Steve. Thank you very much indeed. DIY TV also discussed the topic of so-called joyriding. Now, amongst the guests for that programme were Marion Saunders along with Joan McVitie, whose son was killed whilst joyriding.
As far as I knew, it was his first time that he'd been in a joyriding. It didn't come a light till later on that he had been with other lads at different times. And he went out this night. I saw him at 8 o'clock. He went away. The police came at 11, told us that he had been in an accident. He was in Ashton Hospital and he was dead. I didn't believe it.
You know, I would know that you wouldn't want any other parent ever to have to go through what you've gone through.
No. I've rode down to London to Kenneth Baker because I think it's disgusting that these lads who go out at 16-year-old, they get killed, some of them don't, they just go out and do it.
And Marion, we've already heard you. Just explain to people why you feel so passionate about this cause.
Because I seen that baby that was killed in Newcastle because it was practically in front of my door.
This was a friend of yours.
And I seen that, and I seen the police trying to lift the car off the pram what we thought the baby was in. And that baby was through nearly 15 foot and hit a wall. And that happened. That's why I'm so passionate. I've got 2 grandchildren, 1 4, 1 3. And I would hate, I couldn't take it if it happened to them. And I think that they should be locked up.
Well, I'll talk to Marion in just a moment, but first of all, Joan, who's here beside me. Since that programme, Joan, you've been involved in lobbying at 10 Downing Street, for instance, handing in a petition there, looking, albeit in vain, for really stiffer sentences for joyriding.
Yeah.
There has been some movement, but not to your satisfaction.
No, not at all, because when we went down to London with this petition, we went on the understanding that it was against under 17-year-olds. It's under 17-year-olds who are stealing the cars, pulling in kids like my son was pulled into. We want to do something about it, and hopefully I'm going to try and take this lad to a civil court and see if I can make a spectacle of him of some description.
What will that achieve? You're going to take a civil action against the lad who drove the car in which your son was killed?
Yes, because the government's not doing anything in any way, and I thought, well, if I try and take this lad to civil court, they left my son at the side of the road. They never even tried to get help. It was a half an hour after that anybody came, and my son was still alive at that time.
But how will you afford that, Joan?
How? I'll afford it with whatever I've got, even if I've got to use my house.
You've also come through a summer since we made that programme of the riots last summer and whatever. This situation isn't getting any better.
It's not getting better at all. The government's just not listening to what me and Marion did. They sat and listened to a little bit of it, but they've only put in bigger sentences on older kids, not younger ones.
Let me just bring Marion in there now that you mention her. Marion, together with Tad here, who's beside you, you want to start off a national campaign, and you've got this underway.
Yes, it's going to be launched very soon. It's the National Campaign for Law and Order. Our aims is to have larger custodial sentences, more police on the beat, better rights for the victim and not hardly any for the perpetrator of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on like that. I mean, it's too detailed at the moment for to go into.
What sort of support, Tad, are you getting for this?
Quite a lot. I mean, basically speaking, Marion and I are just two ordinary people who are sick to death of lawlessness. Lawlessness is being perpetrated by the minority. To give you a better illustration of that, I've been in Newcastle now for about 2 weeks, and I haven't yet met anyone that I can't get on with, who I find is objectionable. And it seems such a tragedy that there are those who wish to destroy that community. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do. We want to tackle the bail laws, for instance, because there are too many people who are offending whilst on bail, which we think is a wholly ludicrous situation. If I may quote a statistic given to me by the Northumbria Constabulary, there was one individual who committed no less than 274 offences.
And what happened to him?
We're not exactly sure. That the report doesn't say what happened. Exactly.
274 offences.
274 offences while he was
But,
on bail.
you know, I mean, as they say, talk is cheap. I mean, who is actually getting out there and help? Have you got support from the police? Have you got support? I suppose you're going to have support from your neighbourhood, but I believe that you're not proving to be a very popular person because of this campaign.
No.
What's happening to you?
I've had catapults with marbles shot at us through the kitchen window. Air rifle shots through me kitchen, bathroom, bedroom windows. I've been assaulted in the street. But it's not by my community. It's by the joyriders and the hooligans and the burglars that I'm putting pressure on.
You're not thinking twice at all at any stage?
No, they're not going to frighten us. I've got a right to walk down the street the same as anybody else. I've got a right to go to the shops and leave me home and expect it to be exactly the same when I come back.
Well,
and not
is police help any good to you?
Police help is good to us, but the point is, you've got to have witnesses to catch them. And they're not doing it in the daylight because they're too frightened.
Well, if police, I suppose, don't enjoy widespread support in the community, any initiative has got to come from within the community itself. Is there evidence that the people are with you?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, if I may say so, last Friday we took part in a radio phone-in programme, and the switchboard was absolutely jammed with calls, and we didn't hear one dissenting voice amongst them. And the popularity, bearing in mind that we're still to officially launch the campaign, we're taken aback by exactly how much support we are getting.
Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We'll be in a position to officially launch the campaign for you here on the programme tonight. And I just want to give people the address at home, because if you would like more information about this campaign being launched by Marion and Ted, they can be contacted. Here's the address if you want to take it down. 31 Delaville Gardens. It's Newcastle upon Tyne. The postal code is NE15 6LA. Or there's a telephone number 091 274 7856. Now, what happens, Marion, if someone phones that number?
They'll be given all the relative information that they wish. They will also be given support from us if they've been burgled, if they've been mugged, anything like that. We will do anything we can to help them.
Okay, good luck, and I'm sure all of us here in the audience wish you all the best.
Thank you very
with that. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we actually will be taking the issue off Law and Order next week a step further, as a theatre group expressed their views on the causes of last summer's riots.
The police turned it all into a criminal matter. The clergy turned it into a moral matter. The politicians did both. But we think all it was a continuation of the violence that can be found in the homes, at thrown-out time, at the pubs and on the terraces. And for 3 nights it spilled over into the streets, and nothing more.
And darts fanatic Sid Waddell defends his sport.
I've been a fanatic for about 35 years. And quite honestly, in that time, I've never seen a fight anywhere near the hockey. Men's game, women's game, it's a family game. In fact, it's a very British game. And I think one way or another at the moment, Darts is getting a bit of a road deal.
Well, that's all from us for this week. Hope you enjoyed the programme. To end, here's the DIY Video Y with more of your gripes and groans. Good night. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
When will young people realise that their personalities are far more important than the clothes they wear?
I'm upset with what's happening with science. We're giving science to primary school children, but now in higher levels, nobody's learning any science.
One thing that really gets up my nose is the way press and TV take a statement and then edit it to suit their own story and doesn't represent the full point someone's trying to get across.
I think shell suits should be outlawed because I'm sick of bumping into purple, crimson and orange fat monsters and sea houses.
What really gets under my wick is when this little old lady is running like mad 10 or 20 paces away from the bus and he shuts the door and drives off without me.